Hi everybody, thanks so much for joining us this week on Up in the Air. I'm Casey Herman, and joining me this week at the desk is Chrissy Stewart.
Thanks, Casey. There's a bunch we have to talk about this week. We have stories on styrofoam bans in Florida, climate change affecting raw seafood, and an Australian state power outage.
We will also have a feature on Weather Enterprise, and Quinn will be stopping by later at the Climate Wall with our weekly fall foliage report and details on what weather we can expect in October.
We'll have all that and more in just a bit, but first, here's Update in the Air. If you enjoy eating raw seafood, you may want to think twice before consuming it again. Vibrio bacteria infects raw shellfish, which makes consumers feel ill. This bacteria used to only thrive in the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, but rising water temperatures in the North Atlantic Ocean are causing Vibrio bacteria to spread. People with compromised immune systems can't fight off the infections received from this bacteria. Many symptoms of the infection mock that of food poisoning. The Centers for Disease Control noted the number of Vibrio cases rose nearly 1.5 times from 2012 to 2014. Aside from consumption, you can also get the bacteria from swimming in contaminated waters, such as floodwaters. With an increase in major rain events, sewer systems overload and waste systems fail, creating more runoff and more contamination. An increase in coastal population has also led to extra waste put into seawater. A solution to this problem is currently being worked on, but for now it is advised you do not swim in contaminated waters and avoid consuming raw shellfish.
The world's deepest flooded fissure has been discovered in the Czech Republic, according to a team of explorers. The chasm measures at least 1,325 feet deep. Friday, Polish explorers and team leader told the Associated Press that he felt like a Columbus of the 21st century to have made the discovery. He scuba dived to a narrow slot in the rock formation before sending a remotely operated underwater robot, or ROV, that traveled further but did still not hit the bottom. The Czech Speleological Society said it thinks the cave is even deeper and will yield additional records. When the robot was 404 meters deep, it was as deep as the rope could go, but the bottom was still nowhere in sight, the society said. Diving in the cave is a challenge because of its muddy areas and a water temperature of 15 degrees Celsius. The water's mineral composition also damages equipment and injuries exposed to skin. National Geographic, which first reported the discovery, covered some of the expedition's costs.
Last week, a powerful storm knocked out the power of an entire state in Australia. South Australia was hit with two back-to-back fronts, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. These storms took down 3 of their 4 transmission lines and 23 towers, leaving South Australia's 1.7 million residents without power. 130,000 lightning strikes, wind gusts of 65 miles per hour, and rain totals of 1.3 inches were all reported from midnight to 5 p.m. With no power, chaos ensued. All traffic signals were out, with police only directing traffic at major intersections. Crowds rushed to the supermarket to stock up on candles and matches. Buses and flights were delayed, railways were shut down, trees were down, and building fire alarms were blaring across the city. Officials warned residents to conserve phone battery, shut down all appliances and heating, and prepare for a long power outage. Some homes are still without power. This storm is being called a once-in-a-50-year storm.
In an effort to clean up the sand and waters of Miami Beach, officials recently issued a citywide ban on styrofoam. According to NBC Miami, the ban prohibits restaurants from selling polystyrene items like cups, plates, and containers, which are popular with takeout restaurants. The fines range from $50 to $500 for repeated offensive. Miami Beach is the first city in Florida to enact the ban. Coolers and ice chests are also included in the ban, with similar civil fines. Within the first week of the ban, 15 businesses were fined $50, according to the Miami New Times. By the end of the week, they had replaced their styrofoam products. Code compliance officials have visited local businesses, and the city is encouraging residents to inform them of any businesses still using the illegal material. Though polystyrene reportedly never completely breaks down in landfills, it can decompose in oceans and can stick around for decades. The material breaks down into small, lightweight pieces that are easily blown into the sea, where birds and fish mistake them for food. The ban is expected to push for more environmentally friendly and sustainable packaging options in Miami Beach.
Your drinking water could be contaminated from firefighting efforts. The toxic chemicals found in aqueous film forming foam, or AFFF, have been found in public water supplies in 22 states and 3 American territories, including Pennsylvania. The Environmental Protection Agency noted these states and territories had at least one sample above their advisory level in their drinking water due to acids associated with AFFF. At least 6 million people in the U.S. this year had unsafe drinking water. These chemicals have been linked to cancer, obesity, high cholesterol, and endocrine problems, as well as choking fish gills and coating amphibians, creating aquatic life problems. AFFF is used on a regular basis for house and car fires to prevent flare-ups. However, it is overused in training exercises. Large volumes of these chemicals get washed into lakes, streams, and rivers and can create a layer on the surface of static waters, altering the water's pH balance. Once these chemicals are in the environment, they don't break down. Firefighters are aware of the environmental hazard associated with using AFFF. They try to keep distance away from water sources and use absorbent booms and pads for hazardous materials containment after a scene is safe. But wind and rain easily carry the foam around, making it harder to control the spread of these chemicals. Many public water systems have already begun taking action to address this issue.
Oklahoma's building codes for tornado-safe homes have also helped them withstand earthquakes, expert says. Through the end of September, the U.S. Geological Survey says there have been 1,541 earthquakes of magnitude 2.5 or greater in the state of Oklahoma since the beginning of the year. With so much shaking, including the strongest earthquake in state history, a 5.8 on September 3rd, one might wonder how the Sooner states have fared so in the face of all these tremors. In Oklahoma, tornadoes play a role in just about everything, and surviving a strong, shallow earthquake is no exception. As it turns out, the building codes for Oklahoma require dwellings to survive 115 mile-per-hour winds, or the strength of an EF2 tornado, according to a CNN report. In the city of Moore, which was ravaged by an EF5 tornado on May 20, 2013, codes require houses to withstand 135 mile-per-hour gusts. Strong winds aren't a great threat during a quake, but when homes are built correctly, they can move and sway in a moderate tremor without collapsing. The goal in protecting against both types of natural disasters is the same. Cracks in the home are forgivable, but a complete collapse is not. At the end of the day, residents have to feel confident that their home will keep them alive when the shaking begins, whether it comes from a fracking well or a twister. Thanks for tuning back in.
We now have a special feature on Weather Enterprise.
Over the years, communicating information about the weather has become so much more than people in offices or a meteorologist forecasting on TV.
An interdependent relationship has been established between government, industry, and academia that provides weather and climate information and services in the United States.
Here's an inside look at the way weather is broken down and the inner workings of each sector.
Weather and climate directly affect the U.S. economy and the health and safety of its citizens. It is important to have the best weather and climate information the nation can afford due to the great influence of weather and climate on society.
$20 billion per year is spent on weather-related damages, and hundreds of millions of dollars are saved each year by taking action based on improved forecast, warnings, and other weather services.
In the United States, the weather and climate enterprise has evolved since its inception in the 1800s to include 3 sectors, each of which plays a unique and vital role. They are the National Weather Service, academia, and the private sector.
The National Weather Service is responsible for protecting life and property and enhancing the national economy. It maintains an infrastructure of observing, communications, data processing, and prediction systems. In addition, it conducts research on which the public, such as the federal, state, and local government agencies, private, and academic sectors rely, as well as negotiating data exchange agreements with other countries.
Academia is responsible for advancing the science and educating future generations of meteorologists. The private sector, such as weather companies, meteorologists working for private companies or as private consultants, and broadcast meteorologists, is responsible for creating products and services. These are tailored to the needs of their company or clients and for working with the NWS to communicate forecasts and warnings that may affect public safety.
However, there is friction between the public, private, and academic sectors due to overlapping roles. These include data collection, modeling and analysis, product development, and information dissemination.
Although there still is some stress and tension, it's not as much of a problem as it was, say, back in the 1990s.
Also, the sectors have different philosophies of sharing data and models with the other sectors and the general public. In addition, all members do not share the same expectations and understanding of the proper roles and responsibilities of the three sectors.
There's a human tendency to resist change, and as the weather and climate enterprise has evolved, dealing with change has created additional stress.
The National Research Council released the Fair Weather Report November 2002 on the enterprise collaboration. It was compiled with a total of 11 recommendations, with the first 3 being the most critical.
The first recommendation was that the NWS should replace its 1991 public-private partnership policy with a policy that doesn't rigidly define the roles of the NWS and the private sector. The second recommendation was that the NWS should establish an independent advisory committee to provide ongoing advice to its on weather and climate matters. The committee is composed of users of weather and climate data and representatives of the public, private, and academic sectors. The third and last recommendation was that the NWS and relevant academic, state, and private organizations should seek a neutral host, such as the American Meteorological Society, to provide a periodic venue for the weather enterprise as a whole to discuss issues related to the public-private partnership.
The most important result of the Fair Weather Report to date has been the creation of a much more open communications process between the three segments.
For Up in the Air, I'm Veronica Dolan.
And I'm Christina Persch.
Welcome back to the show.
I can't believe how fast September went, Chrissy.
I know, it just flew by and it's already October.
That's right, and this weekend is homecoming weekend. Are you ready for homecoming, Quinn?
Yeah, I'm really excited. Joel Myers from AccuWeather is actually going to be Grand Marshal this year, so it's great to see some meteorology in the homecoming parade this year.
Yes, it's very exciting for our department.
But now we're looking at the fall foliage colors. How are they looking now, Quinn?
It's looking much better, especially for places here in Pennsylvania. It's starting to dip south. You can see here in northern PA, we have some low color out there, and towards the mountains, they're starting to see some color too. But if you really want to see some good colors out there, you have to head up to New England, New Hampshire, and Vermont, where they're going to soon start to be peaking for their fall foliage colors. Our upper air pattern for this week, you're going to see we have a ridge here over us right now. It's going to promote some above average temperatures. You can even see Matthew down there that's going to start to push north as we head throughout this week. So like I said, here's our temperature outlook for the next week or so. State College, about marginally warmer than average. We're going to see some temperatures in the 60s or 70s for the next week or so. But the big story is the above normal temperatures in the Midwest. They're going to see some above normal temperatures for the next week and a half. Really, the whole United States is warmer than average for this time of the year. Going along with that, we have some drier conditions, especially to our southeast here. But that could change, especially if this Hurricane Matthew pushes up the coast. So this could change as we head throughout the next few days. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. But for our friends out west, they're going to see above normal precipitation for the next week and a half or so. And looking at our drought monitor for across the United States, a big story you can see out here out west, they're dealing still with that severe drought, and that's going to continue as we move throughout the next week or so. No really relief in sight, except for our friends up in the western portion. The Pacific Northwest is going to see some above normal precipitation, so that's definitely something to look forward to for them. But for around our neck of the woods, you can see that we're still dealing with that drought out there. Really hasn't been changing them that much. It's actually getting a little bit more worse. And our friends up in New England, they're still seeing that severe drought as well. That's all I have for this week. I'm going to send it back to Christy and Casey.
So it seems like all that rain we had last week really didn't help too much with our drought here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it didn't seem like it put a big dent in it. We didn't get as much precip as I thought we were going to get, so it's definitely still pretty dry out there for much of the state.
That's really unfortunate for our economy, but thanks, Quinn.
That's all we have for this week's episode. As always, thanks so much for joining us.
We'll be back next week with a new episode of Up in the Air. But for now, I'm Christy Stewart.
And I'm Casey Herman. We'll see you next week, Up in the Air.